I spent 7 years serving forces I thought would give me power, only to discover they were destroying everything I touched. What I'm about to share isn't theory or speculation. This is what I witnessed firsthand about how demonic entities operate in people's lives. And trust me, they're far more strategic than you've been led to believe. Most people think demonic influence looks like something out of a horror movie. Levitating bodies, speaking in tongues, heads spinning around. That's Hollywood nonsense. And honestly, that's exactly what these forces want you to believe. Because while you're looking for the dramatic, the obvious, the theatrical, they're working in ways so subtle you'll never see them coming. And that's the genius of it. That's how they've operated for thousands of years. And that's why so many people are completely unaware they're being influenced right now. Let me take you back to where it all started for me. I was 19 years old, angry at the world, disappointed by religion, searching for something that felt real and powerful. I met someone at a college party who seemed different, confident, magnetic, completely unbothered by anything. He talked about personal power, about not being a slave to outdated moral systems, about becoming your own god. It sounded liberating. It sounded like exactly what I needed. Within 6 months, I was involved in rituals I never imagined I'd participate in. Within a year, I was recruiting others. Within 2 years, I was leading ceremonies. And within 3 years, I started noticing the patterns. The patterns of how these forces actually work. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Demonic entities don't announce themselves. They don't knock on your door with a business card that says, "Hello, I'm a demon. Let me ruin your life." They present themselves as solutions, as answers to your deepest frustrations, as the missing piece you've been searching for. They study you. They watch your vulnerabilities, your pain points, your unmet desires. And then they offer you exactly what you think you need, wrapped in language that resonates with your specific worldview. For me, it was power and control. I felt powerless in my life. My parents had divorced messily, I was struggling academically, and I had no real direction. When I was introduced to these practices, they were presented as ancient wisdom, as secret knowledge that the masses were too afraid or too ignorant to access. I was told I was special for even being interested. That's the first hook, making you feel chosen, making you feel like you're part of an elite group that understands something others don't. The second thing I learned is that these forces work through permission. This is crucial. They can't just barge into your life without an opening. They need an invitation, even if you don't realize you're giving one. And these invitations come in countless forms. It might be dabbling in occult practices just for fun. It might be harboring deep resentment and refusing to forgive. It might be addictions that you keep feeding. It might be relationships you know are toxic, but you refuse to leave. Each of these creates a doorway, a point of entry, a legal right in the spiritual realm. During my time in Satanism, I saw people who came to us broken. Addicts, abuse survivors, people drowning in depression. We didn't help them heal. We gave them practices that made them feel temporarily powerful while actually deepening their bondage. We taught them to curse their enemies, to manipulate others through spiritual means, to access states of consciousness through drugs and rituals. And it worked. That's the terrifying part. It actually worked. People got revenge on those who hurt them. People experienced supernatural phenomena. People felt powerful for the first time in their lives. But there was always a price. Always. The price showed up in different ways for different people. Some people's lives just fell apart. Relationships imploded. Jobs disappeared. Health deteriorated. But the more common price was subtler. It was the slow erosion of their humanity. People became colder, more paranoid, more isolated. Their eyes changed. I'm not being poetic here. There was something in their eyes that shifted. A hardness, a darkness. I saw it in others before I recognized it in myself. Let me tell you about the specific tactics these forces use, because once you know them, you'll start seeing them everywhere. The first major tactic is isolation. Demonic forces will always try to separate you from healthy relationships, from community, from anyone who might speak truth into your life. They'll make you suspicious of people who care about you. They'll convince you that you're misunderstood, that nobody really gets you, that you're better off alone with your thoughts and your practices. I watched this happen to dozens of people. They'd gradually cut off family members, drop old friends, and surround themselves only with others who reinforced their new path. And once you're isolated, you're vulnerable. You have no outside perspective, no one to check your thinking, no one to notice when you're spiraling. The second tactic is accusation and shame. This sounds contradictory because these forces also promote doing whatever you want without guilt, right? But here's the trick. They encourage you to do things that ultimately hurt you or others, and then they turn around and use those very actions to torment you. They become your accuser. I can't tell you how many nights I lay awake, my mind racing with accusations, replaying every mistake, every person I'd hurt, every line I'd crossed. But here's the key. These weren't thoughts that led to genuine repentance or change. They were thoughts designed to keep me trapped in shame, to make me feel too far gone to turn back, to convince me I was beyond redemption. The third tactic is counterfeit spirituality. These forces will give you real spiritual experiences, but they'll be corrupted versions of what your soul actually needs. You'll feel transcendence, but it will be tied to practices that ultimately enslave you. You'll experience power, but it will be power that feeds your ego rather than transforming your character. You'll encounter supernatural phenomena, but it will lead you away from the truth rather than toward it. I experienced what I thought was enlightenment during certain rituals. I felt connected to something vast and ancient, but there was always an undercurrent of dread, a sense that I was accessing something I shouldn't be accessing, a feeling that I was being watched by something that didn't have my best interests at heart. The fourth tactic is gradual progression. Nobody goes from zero to full demonic involvement overnight. It's always a step-by-step process. First, you justify a small compromise, then a bigger one, then something you would have been horrified by a year ago seems reasonable. This is the boiling frog principle. If you throw a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But if you put it in cool water and slowly heat it, the frog will stay until it's cooked. I watched this happen to everyone, including myself. We all had lines we said we'd never cross, and we all crossed them, because by the time we got there, we'd been conditioned step by step to believe those lines were arbitrary anyway. Now, let me tell you what started waking me up. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It wasn't a religious experience or an intervention. It was exhaustion. I was exhausted from maintaining the lies, exhausted from the paranoia, exhausted from the constant spiritual warfare I was engaged in. Because here's what they don't tell you when you get into this. You're not just fighting against the forces of light. You're also constantly fighting with other practitioners, with the entities you're supposedly aligned with your own conscience that never completely shuts up, no matter how much you suppress it. I started noticing that everyone deeply involved in these practices was miserable. We talked about power and freedom, but none of us were free. We were bound by complicated ritual requirements, by fear of spiritual retaliation, by addictions and compulsions we couldn't shake. We talked about enlightenment, but none of us had peace. We were all anxious, always looking over our shoulders, always suspicious that someone was working against us. And the entities we served? They never gave anything without taking more in return. It was the worst exchange rate imaginable. The breaking point came during a ritual where we were attempting to invoke a particular entity for someone who wanted power in their business dealings. I was leading the ceremony. Everything was going according to plan. And then I looked around the room at the faces of the people participating, really looked at them, and I saw it clearly for the first time. Everyone was terrified. Under the confidence, under the performance, everyone was absolutely terrified. We were playing with forces we couldn't control, pretending we had authority over things that could destroy us in an instant. And in that moment, something in me just broke. I walked out of that ritual, went home, and didn't go back. Getting out wasn't easy. The hardest part wasn't leaving the group or the practices. The hardest part was confronting what I'd become. I had to look honestly at the damage I'd caused, the people I'd manipulated, the lies I'd spread. The vulnerable people I'd pulled into darkness while claiming to help them. That was excruciating. And I had to face the reality that I'd given years of my life to forces that only wanted to consume me. But here's what I learned about demonic influence that I want you to understand. These forces are legalistic. They operate based on permission and access. If you've given them an opening, they have a legal right in the spiritual realm to be present in your life. But those rights can be revoked. The doors can be closed. The access can be removed. It requires you to recognize what you've allowed, to genuinely turn away from it, and to close those doors through renouncing those agreements and inviting the right spiritual authority into your life. And here's the thing about the right spiritual authority. I tried everything to find peace after leaving Satanism. Meditation, therapy, New Age practices, you name it. They all helped a little bit. But nothing fundamentally shifted until I encountered the name and person of Jesus Christ. And I know some of you just rolled your eyes. I get it. I would have too. But I'm telling you from experience, there's a reason that name has power. There's a reason demonic entities recoil from that name. It's not about religion or church or being a good person. It's about authority in the spiritual realm. And nothing, and I mean nothing, has the authority over demonic forces that Christ has. When I first prayed to Jesus, I didn't even really believe. I was desperate and willing to try anything. But I asked him to show me if he was real, to clean me up if he could, to undo the damage I'd done. And things started shifting. Not instantly, not magically, but progressively. The nightmares stopped. The oppressive presence I'd felt for years lifted. The compulsions weakened. The shame that had been crushing me was replaced by something I hadn't felt in almost a decade. Hope. Real hope. Not the fake, performance-based confidence I'd manufactured in Satanism, but genuine hope rooted in something outside myself. Now, let me give you practical signs that demonic forces might be operating in your life or in the life of someone you love. Persistent patterns of destruction that defy logical explanation. Like, everything you touch falls apart despite your best efforts. Sudden, extreme personality changes, especially toward becoming more isolated, more angry, more destructive. Fascination with dark spiritual content, occult symbolism, violence, or death that goes beyond normal interest into obsession. Hearing voices that tell you to hurt yourself or others, or that feed you lies about your worth and identity. Experiencing supernatural phenomena in your home or around you, especially things that create fear rather than peace. Having a strong, visceral negative reaction to spiritual things like prayer, scripture, or worship, especially if you didn't have that reaction before. If you recognize any of these in your life, listen carefully. You're not crazy. You're not imagining it. And you're not beyond help. But you need to take it seriously. These forces are real, they're intelligent, and they're strategic. They won't just go away because you ignore them. They need to be actively confronted and removed through proper spiritual authority. Here's what you can do right now, today, if you think you're dealing with demonic influence. First, stop feeding it. Whatever doors you've opened through occult practices, unforgiveness, addictions, and toxic relationships, you need to stop. Just stop. Don't negotiate with it. Don't try to manage it. Don't convince yourself you can handle it. Stop. Second, confess it out loud. Say it verbally. There's power in bringing things from the darkness into the light. Tell someone you trust. If you're a believer, confess it to God, but speak it out loud. Third, renounce any agreements or invitations you've made, whether you made them knowingly or unknowingly. Say out loud, I renounce any agreement I've made with demonic forces. I revoke any permission I've given. I close any doors I've opened. Fourth, invite the protection and authority of Jesus Christ into your life. You don't have to have perfect faith. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just ask. Say, Jesus, if you're real, I need your help. I need your protection. I need you to remove these forces from my life. And finally, get support. Find a church that takes spiritual warfare seriously. Find believers who can pray with you and for you. Don't try to do this alone. Remember, Isolation is one of their primary tactics. Community is your protection. I've been free from Satanism for 12 years now. My life isn't perfect. I still deal with consequences from the choices I made during those dark years. But I'm free. The oppression is gone. The entities that tormented me have no authority over my life anymore. I can sleep at night. I can look people in the eye. I can love and be loved without manipulation. And I can tell you without any doubt that the forces I once served are real, they're dangerous, and they're operating in more lives than you could imagine. But I can also tell you that they're defeated forces. They have power only where they're given permission. And that permission can be revoked at any time. Don't underestimate the reality of spiritual warfare, but also don't live in fear. Fear is their weapon. Truth and authority are yours. The same power that created the universe is available to you. The same authority that cast demons out 2,000 years ago still exists today. You don't have to live under the influence of darkness. Freedom is possible. Freedom is available. Freedom is your right as a human being created in the image of God. So here's my question for you, and I really want you to think about this and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? Something that felt like more than just bad luck or coincidence? Have you noticed patterns of destruction in your life or in the lives of people around you that seem almost orchestrated? Have you dabbled in spiritual practices that maybe you shouldn't have? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you found freedom from demonic influence, share your story. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own freedom. Remember this: you are not an accident. You are not meaningless. You are not beyond redemption. You were created with purpose, with dignity, with infinite worth. The forces of darkness want you to forget that. They want you isolated, ashamed, and convinced you're too far gone. But that's a lie. The deepest darkness I experienced was nothing compared to the light that broke through when I finally turned to the truth. And that same light is available to you right now, no matter what you've done or how far you think you've fallen. If this video opened your eyes to something you needed to hear, do me a favor. Hit that like button so more people can find this message. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to keep exploring these deep philosophical and spiritual questions that actually matter. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life might be changed by understanding these truths. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.